one of these days, I'm actually going to read that whole thing when it pops up. All right. And we are back with 90s Noise. I'm April, born 1991.
And I'm Ashley, born 1988.
And today we have a special guest. We have Eric from Bygone Geek here. And yeah, so Eric, give us your birth year.
I am born 1985, so I was joking with April and Ashley that I'm the resident old person for the remainder of this episode. So I feel like Clint Eastwood, yelling, "Get off my lawn" here. But I'm used to it. Like David, my co-host David and I on Bygone Geek, he's also 1991. And so I'm used to him giving me old man burns almost, and he's kept the streak alive. It's almost every single episode for the past 65 episodes. But no, yeah, him and I started our podcast, Bygone Geek. It was part of just the pandemic of being really cooped up. I had actually originally started it by putting my iPhone on a tripod in front of me. And for people who, if this is part of a visual clip or not, it's like, this is a real background. My room is a very nerdy pop culture room. I have a 7-foot Iron Man and like a 6.5-foot Harrison Ford and Carbonite. And this is just 2 of my 4 walls. I have Ghostbusters with a proton pack, Power Rangers helmets, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Robert Patrick as Terminator 2 that are flanking my podcast desk right here. So my whole life has just been centered on 80s and 90s nostalgia that I just refuse to let my inner child go away. I think some people, especially in their 30s, as you get closer to 40, kind of let that die at that period of time. And so when I started doing the really simple kind of just YouTube videos with my iPhone, it felt a very refreshing to me because I got to revisit these nostalgic periods of my childhood. I got to rewatch movies. I got to share family memories that like my dad and my sister and my mom would watch and be like, I didn't think you would remember that. And they would be happy that like, oh, I tried really hard on that birthday and you like rebought that toy and put it in a display case. And it's like now forever something that just makes me feel good. And so it's just been kind of this unifier that nostalgia really can bring a lot of people together, much like you, April and Ashley, that like it can make a friendship so much stronger when you talk about a childhood that you didn't even share together. Because David and I didn't know each other until our 30s, our early 30s. We kind of bumped into each other because we work in the same field. I work at a developmental disabilities agency where I do all their photography and videography and social media. So doing this type of stuff, I understood. And so it was nice to kind of do something that I had control over. But sadly, when we became friends, he moved away like 6 months later. So that's why our podcast is a Zoom podcast. But no, for anybody that wants to check us out, we've done it for 65 weeks straight now. Our most recent episode that came out, it comes out every Saturday, is Kindergarten Cop, because we have quite an obsession with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Our episode before that was Space Jam. Then in March, we had a whole month that was themed to martial arts madness as kind of a March Madness breakdown, where we did very deep dive, obscure martial arts movies, but then did modern ones. And one of the popular ones was Three Ninjas. We didn't do a dedicated episode on it, but it was very popular in our Instagram polls. So yeah, I'm excited to do this today. And for anybody that wants to check us out, you can just look us up it's just Bygone Geek on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. And we're on anywhere you can get your podcasts. So Google, Stitcher, Apple, and Spotify are like our big 2 predominantly that people seem to listen from. But yeah, we're really trying to push our YouTube lately, the kind of video component of it, because our audio episodes are typically 90 minutes to 2 hours. We're very long-winded, nostalgic, geeks. But our YouTubes are very bite-sized. It's like 6 to 10 minutes. It's a lot of comedy. It's a lot of cuts to clips that make you feel nostalgic. So yeah, feel free to check that out and subscribe. But I really appreciate April and Ashley inviting me on here because, yeah, I mean, nostalgia is nothing unless you share it. Like, so to be able to share it today with you guys is pretty cool. So I'm excited.
Oh, well, thank you for coming on. It's actually kind of funny how you mentioned that you and David like met and then he moved away because
Yeah.
honestly, that's almost exactly
Oh,
what
really?
happened with us too.
So
Oh,
who's the one that moved away? Who's the one to blame? Because I blame David all oh, it's you,
I
April.
did.
It's your
Yeah,
fault.
because I lived in Orlando from 2017 to towards the end of 2019, and then my husband and I's jobs took us to the Panhandle, and so then it was 6.5 hours away,
Yeah.
plus losing an hour because the Panhandle is Central Time, not Eastern Time.
Wow, I'm learning
So
geography. I had no idea. Is that one of the
yeah,
only
just
states that probably is wide enough to do that? I would think it might be. That's
that
crazy.
there's like a little section of Kansas, like the very edge of Kansas
Oh,
is
okay.
mountain time, just because we would always drive through going to go ski and everything. But
Mm.
yeah, when I touched base with you guys about doing I loved that you had mentioned Three Ninjas because Ashley and I had been talking about doing for the year 1992, which is the year that we're like never gonna get out of, is was trilogies. We did the Honey I Shrunk the Kids earlier
Classic.
on,
Yeah.
and that was her pick, and my pick was Three Ninjas, and I was like trying to get her to, I was like, come on, I know you've never seen it, but come on. So that
How
it
were
just
you
made
not
it a little.
exposed to the ninja craze of the 90s? Because didn't weren't you not also exposed to Ninja Turtles? Like, didn't I see a clip where you didn't watch Ninja Turtles either?
No,
That's
was
crazy.
not exposed to. I've never even heard of Three Ninjas until April brought it up. I'm like, what is
Wow.
this?
So I take it you weren't one of the 90s kids that got wrapped up in doing taekwondo or karate back in the day either?
No.
Oh, that makes more
Mm-mm.
sense then, because like I feel like that was the big sport of the 90s.
Mhm.
It, also, I feel Three Ninjas, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all of those are kind of more male based.
It's true.
I
Yeah.
grew up with two older brothers. Ashley had an older sister, and so like that was also part of our doing this podcast was the different experiences we had. And I just gotta show you. So I've even got my
Oh, that is a sick shirt.
Three
Where did you get
Ninjas
that from?
Toy Snobs. They have an Instagram, and
Okay.
they do. I think they're actually coming. They're doing a second drop. This was last year, 2 years ago.
Okay.
They did a Three Ninjas Surf Ninja
Oh my God.
combo, and
Double
so
ninjas.
yes, I got the combo. I got the Three Ninjas. I got the Surf Ninjas one too, and
Wow.
so they I'll have
So
to
now you got a uniform so you can moto surf on the top of your car, right?
exactly. So
Yeah, I will
I
buy that the second I leave this podcast.
yeah, I'll send you the Instagram because Ernie Reyes Jr. had just reposted that they had posted something about doing another drop of it, I
Oh,
believe.
cool.
And so how they do it is you purchase it, and then in like 6 to 8 weeks you get it because they just make as
Right.
much as purchased. So I'll definitely send that over to you. But yeah, so Ashley had her first watch of the Three Ninjas, which we
I am
actually
so curious to hear your responses to some of this because I know that there's one of these three that we'll talk about today was not really as like when I did the rewatch, I realized how much it wasn't part of my childhood. I have
mhm,
vague memories of it, but it's not like core childhood memories like
yeah.
the other two are. And because of that, it was kind of painful to watch. Like
Oh.
as an adult, I was just like, "Whoo, this one's real cheesy." But yeah, so I couldn't imagine coming in cold with no nostalgic agenda as part of it, because that's the funny thing I feel like about a lot of movies like this, is that if it isn't part of your like childhood DNA and you watch it as somebody in your 30s, it's
Mhm.
like what like you'll look at somebody who adores it and be like, "What's wrong with you? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you
Yes.
remotely like this?"
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Okay. So see, that's what I was trying to tell you, April.
I'm
It
giving you
is.
I'm giving you ammunition.
Well, that's how I felt with what was it, My Girl, I think.
Mm.
Because I had like never seen that before, and then then I told her I'd watch it and we'd talk about it, and I'm just kind of like,
Yeah,
what?
I'm on the side of loving My Girl. I still get a little misty in the eyes when
Yes.
it's like he's getting stung by the bees and he needs his glasses. Like,
Yeah.
There were parts that did get me, but I was just like,
yeah,
it was also kind of hard, like watching such a young Macaulay Culkin
yeah, he's
and
really small. Yeah.
and thinking of him, but like picturing him now and everything. So I think that also like had thrown me. So Ashley, we'll start with you. The first one. We're gonna start on the actual true first one.
Yeah.
The so this one this was the one that we did you and I watched together,
Yeah.
right?
I think so. I think that helped to allow me to enjoy the first one more. Was one, we were experiencing it together, and two, we were still like a little drunk from going out. So I feel like
Please
it was.
tell me you recorded this. Like, I feel
No,
like that should
we
be like a
should've.
We
YouTube
should've.
like Patreon episode right
Oh my God, we should have. We were 7 shots and like a couple drinks in by that point.
there. That's content right there. That you would have got a couple hundred subscribers just from that. That's awesome.
So, kind of just a breakdown for those listeners who haven't ever seen Three Ninjas. It is available on Prime, like Prime Video. You can rent it. The premise of all 3 of the movies we're going to be talking about, the main premise is there's these 3 siblings who go spend a summer with their grandpa, and he teaches them the art of ninja. And so the first one is kind of where they're first, in a sense, learning about it. And they get their ninja names. And then these 3 kids who are supposed to be like 7, 9, 11 or something of that sort.
Very young.
Very young. Are just being little ninjas in a sense, like being boys. And so the first movie's premise, just like I said, they're starting off. They've got their father is not a big fan of being ninjas, and he's an FBI agent, and he is chasing down this guy who happens to be their grandpa's like old business partner.
Mm-hmm.
And so the business partner, the bad guy of the movie, kidnaps the kids because he's trying to, in a sense, get back at both the grandpa and the dad. And so it kind of is how they are getting out of that situation, and cheesy to the max is an understatement on this.
Yes, very much so.
I did love like the whole can phone. So Ashley, had you never done that?
The
like
what?
taken 2 cans, the string, how Rocky's talking to Emily across the way and everything. Was that you, or was that
was
never?
My boyfriend couldn't figure that one out. It didn't seem like a plausible concept. Like, how does this working right now?
I remember in elementary school, we did it as part of like science class, where you went outside on the playground and you just stretched a string between 2, like everybody brought in like Campbell's soup cans, and you drilled a little hole and you put the string in the bottom of it. And I feel like everybody would just kind of shout into the cans. And so you couldn't quite judge, am I hearing it because somebody's shouting from 10 feet away or am I hearing it in the can? But I do remember as a kid and watching it now as podcasters, it's funny because those cans are on podcast microphone stands, which I was like, oh, like that's kind of
Mhm.
cool. It's like, but I don't know if that actually would have worked, but it to me as a kid, seeing that set up in their bedrooms, because I mean, especially Rocky Colton Tum Tum's bedroom in the first movie, what a
Oh,
sick bedroom.
It
I mean,
was
it was
cool.
so cool. Even like the emergency light that would trigger when the parents came to the
Mhm.
door. Oh, that was so amazing to me as a kid. That was so cool.
yeah. I loved it. Like for me, it's a fun movie. I love the whole scene inside the house when the uh the like nephew or some of one of the guys that works for the bad guy
Mm.
comes and tries to kidnap him. Like they're doing all these different things, tying this door, the string around the door to make it to where you can't open it. Did either of you ever try that?
I actually did try to make booby traps in my house and Home Alone and this movie. I think a lot of 90s kids movies, there's some sort of kid planted booby trap in every movie. So I do remember I tried to do things a couple times, but the second my dad would hear me like hammering something in my room, it just took him yelling once, and I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna get in trouble. Like I shouldn't be doing this. So I would like literally, because I tried to like hang something up that would, when the door swung open, it was like a skeleton mask from Halloween that I actually like put on like a torso that was like, I think it was like Giant Eagle grocery bags that were in there, so that when you open the door, it would slide and scare my sister. But I needed to put a nail in the door and a nail in the wall. And sitting there trying to silently nail in a nail so my dad doesn't yell at me, I never fully achieved the booby trap. So it was an instant failure. But it is funny. There's just something about Rocky Colton Tum Tum in that scene, like you're saying, April, that it's in our martial arts madness episode, David mentioned Three Ninjas as Home Alone with karate in it,
Mhm.
and that
Yeah.
that home sequence very much is that. Like, it's just if Kevin Callister knew ninjutsu, and just much cheesier. Like it's Home Alone is still quite a classic. I think this one is such a cult classic because of that cheese factor for sure.
Mm. Oh yeah, that's exactly the vibes that I got from both, even that one and then the next one where they're at the cabin or whatever. Like they were doing a lot of the same type of setups where you're trying to trap, and that's the same vibes I got. Was very Home Alone. Um,
It really is. I maybe that's part of why I didn't care for Home Alone is because
What?
I
That's
saw,
it.
yeah,
Leaving the
yeah.
podcast. I'm out of here.
thing, yeah, right.
Collaboration over.
Yes, that's one of my little secrets is Home Alone was I don't know, it didn't resonate with me, but maybe it was because because Home Alone was what, 93 or something, and
90.
Three Ninjas
Yeah, you're right,
was
because it
90.
was before this. Yeah, it was like
Hmm.
2 years
Okay.
before it.
So I
The
think my
sequel, I think, was
brothers,
like 92 or 93.
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
probably what I'm thinking. I think my brothers kind of preferred Three Ninjas to it also as opposed to Home Alone. And so also with Home Alone, you really only watch it once a year, like around Christmas time. Um, that was, or at least that's when it was available to watch on TV. Whereas like Three Ninjas, it, I guess in my eyes as a child, not understanding how when movies came out and everything, um, I saw Three Ninjas and remember Three Ninjas before seeing Home Alone.
Mhm.
And so in my eyes, I think I was like, oh, well, this is a takeoff. Like this is stuff that Three Ninjas did. Why is it copying that, not realizing Home Alone came before Three Ninjas?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think in a little bit of that sense.
It is funny how that kind of works out, because David and I make reference to that a lot in episodes where we say, like, our child brain remembers this, but now our adult brain realizes how wildly wrong that was.
Mhm.
That, like, especially timeline wise. It's like I was introduced to movies that were like 80s movies in like 92, 93, and I thought it was a new movie, but it like came out in
Yeah.
like 1984. Um, and especially like this with like trilogies or anything with sequels. As a kid, I watched almost all of them out of order. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I think I might have seen Home Alone 2 before Home Alone 1.
Mm.
Um, I feel like with this, I know that I definitely saw the first one first, but I feel like now I was kind of misremembering how I saw the sequels, and based on how the sequels were actually released in this movie, they were backwards. Like they're
They were.
actually like because of like a distribution issue. And it's funny because now I remember that I was like, oh, I did see these out of order in my mind, but it truly is in the order that it was released to the audiences and stuff. Um, but it kind of went over my head. When like some of the kids were replaced, that I was just like,
Mhm.
I feel like you didn't really pay attention to that when you were young. Um, but yeah, I was obsessed with pretty much anything in this genre. So like Home Alone and Three Ninjas. Anytime a kid kind of got to make these independent, wild, and crazy decisions, I just I don't know. It's a little boy thing. I feel like of just like little boys causing chaos, and it's just like it was so appealing to me. But yeah, the first one especially with the three surfer dudes. I can't remember what their names were, but you watch it now, it's like the cheesiest like Southern California accents and stuff like that. But
It's
this by
almost,
far,
well, I almost felt like it was a playoff of Bill and Ted too. Like they,
yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Yeah, a bad play off of them for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
That's
But
for sure.
I really think the home scene is by far the most core memories for me when I did a rewatch of this, because it's just when they make like these spice pepper balls out of like coffee filters and throw them in their eyes, and then put the what is it, instant diarrhea, I think is what they call it, into
Yes.
their drink. I
Yes.
so vividly remember that scene, and when they're drinking it, and then like their eyes, like the corner of their eyes get like pink, so you know they're sick. Which I feel like such a '90s thing that they needed to give you a visual cue
Mhm.
that the bad guy is sick. But yeah, when they run to all the different bathrooms, it was another cheesy like a little boy thing. Just potty humor was hilarious. I feel like, but I love that scene so much. Like, how did it connect with you, Abe? Like, was that a big like memory scene to you as well?
Yeah, so that was probably the one scene that I remembered the most from
Mhm.
the movie, like as a child growing up. Because like I said, I even tried a few times to like do the whole tie the string around the two doors to keep them from opening, but ours doors didn't match the same way that it needed to be. And so but I do, and I remember the whole um instant diarrhea, put it in the drink and everything, and the the whole the tie scene,
Oh, yeah.
also, and just was like, that is so cool. And but it's also kind of one of those things where it's like, ugh, that would actually probably make him pass out super quickly,
Oh, yeah.
because
If
you've
not, break
got
his
it.
neck.
Yeah,
Like, I feel with you. Well,
you've got like an 80-pound kid that
yeah,
like pulls on it, and it's
yeah.
like, ugh.
When David and I did a Home Alone episode for our like Christmas seasonal episodes, we we judged based on which of these traps that Kevin McAllister set would have really killed the sticky bandit or the wet bandits in
Ooh.
the first movie, because there's a lot that
Mhm.
they would have
Yeah.
died from, or they would have had very serious injuries from. And I really think, yeah, when he ties that around his neck and jumps off the foyer, he would have been dead. He totally, there would have
Yeah.
been like, Rocky, Colt, and Tum Tum would have witnessed their first dead body.
Yeah.
It'd been a whole different movie, a whole
It
different
would
movie.
have been. And like the whole like doing the soap on the ground to make it
Mhm.
slippery and everything. I wanted to try that so bad, but like practically our entire house was carpet, so there was no way of trying that at all.
Yeah, your
Um,
parents would have murdered you.
yeah, they
Like,
probably would have, but my brothers would have been right there with me, helping me at that point
yeah,
because
as the sister, you could have easily blamed it on the two brothers, like very easily. Oh, that's funny.
but the one part that I also remembered very vividly on that was when they opened the door where the babysitter, this closet door,
Mhm.
and she's just like traumatized, and there's like pizza on her face,
Yeah.
and I think it's Tum Tum is like, "Did you save me you better have saved me a slice of pizza," and it was just. And she's just like scared about the guy behind that comes up behind them and everything. And
Yeah.
it's
Well, and I think I don't even think she has a line in the movie. Even when she shows up to the house, she just knocks on the door and kind of like grumbles. She's like, "Meow, meow, 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 meow." Like she's just like a
it's
cartoon character.
true.
Yeah. And even when she's sitting there trembling, she's just like, like she never actually says anything. But yeah, they're too busy getting their comedy one-liners in that the rest of the henchmen come into the front door and they don't even hear that they're behind them. So
Yeah.
they're not the best ninjas when it comes to getting snuck up on in certain parts of this movie. But yeah, they are, all in elementary school. Like I think maybe what if Rocky's like 11 or 12? Because I think he was the oldest. What's that,
Mhm.
like sixth
Yeah.
grade? So you got two
Something
elementary
like
school
that. Yeah.
kids and a sixth grader. They're just they're not quite ninjas yet.
Yeah.
But I feel like this scene, and I loved. Now it's another one of those things that I always think about when I do rewatches of all the movies that David and I have done, is that what you look at as a kid, it's like these scenes were super cool, but now as an adult, it's like I look at the grandpa's cabin in the woods, and I'm like, "Whew, that's a nice piece of real estate. I wonder how much that cost. Can I
Mhm.
find something like that on Zillow?"
Right?
Like, it's so weird how like something goes over your head as a kid, and now you watch it, and you're like, "Oh, that's really cool. Maybe I should go get a cabin in the woods. I should check out Airbnb or something like that." Um, but it makes me curious. Like, Ashley, was there any scene in this movie for you watching it cold and having no nostalgic agenda as part of this that was just very entertaining for you? Or was it was just too much cheese?
So yeah, there was a lot of cheese. It was all honestly looking back at it, it's a lot of, it's all a blur too. And I just remember while we were watching it, April, you kept on mentioning how there was a lot of different scenes than what you remembered watching as a kid.
Yeah. So I feel like the Prime rental one has like extended scenes or
Oh.
even just added scenes in it.
So when
Because
I looked into it, there's actually an international version which does have different
okay.
scenes, and I think that's what Amazon has. So that's probably what it was.
Yeah,
Uh
I saw something too that it used to be Hulu that had it, so they must have like Amazon must have bought the rights for it or
Mm.
something. That apparently when this movie was made and then purchased by Disney as for distribution, and Disney
mm,
thought that there were scenes that were too violent and
yeah.
for a Disney audience, so they removed them. And then when they would beat up the anybody, they added the comedy like boings and
Oh,
all the different sounds, thinking it would feel more lighthearted for a Disney base. So yeah, Ashley, I think you are right that those scenes are what were considered too violent for a Disney audience. It's probably not even remote, like violence
No.
probably not even the right word. Like, but I thought that was interesting when I saw that Disney was just like, oh no, this is too violent. It's like, what are they actually killing people? Did the guy die in the foyer of the house? Like, that makes me jump to that conclusion. But
Yeah, because so for me, actually when I was living in Orlando, I had gone on Amazon and bought like the DVDs. We since had like gotten rid of them and everything, but even the DVDs that I had gotten didn't have that international version. It was still, I think it was probably still being distributed, but by Disney or whatever, the ones I got, because even those didn't have it. Because I this is such a big part of my childhood, this trilogy, that I still almost every other year or so will go back and rewatch all of them. And so it hadn't been that long since I'd seen the DVDs of these. And so that's why when Ashley and I were watching that first one, I was like, am I going crazy here? Or did I see it? Was the scene in there? That's I'm sure I don't know if Ashley was like looking at me at any parts, but there are some parts I'm just like, this isn't this isn't right. Like
Yeah.
this wasn't in that.
Yeah, I'll
So
have to check that out because I ended up it's weird because I have Amazon and somehow when I like searched Apple TV to see where it was available, it didn't show up for me on at least that it was in Amazon. So I actually had to watch like a pirated version on YouTube. And because it like right now on Apple TV, if you go to buy it, it's 17.99. You can't even rent it. And I'm like, how dare you
really,
capitalize on my nostalgia by price gouging
wow.
Three Ninjas?
Oh.
I was like, yeah,
Wow.
18 bucks is a little steep for Three Ninjas. But yeah, I still don't know how in this day and age people can upload full versions of them. I mean, it's very low quality.
Yeah.
But I'd be curious now I'll probably get on Amazon later today to see those scenes too, because it is weird when you watch like so many movies from the 80s and 90s now have like Blu-ray versions or director's
Yeah.
cuts that when you do watch them, I agree with you, April. You're just like, I don't, I don't get this. Like, and no wonder you took it
Yeah.
out. Like, this is not like a funny scene. It's not like relatable. It kind of takes away from the tone of the movie. So
Yeah.
that would be quite jarring that in a movie that you grew up so closely attached to see a scene that you're just like, what is this? I have no clue what this is. But yeah, I'll have to check it out for sure.
I can't remember if it was the one that we watched, the first one, or if it was the second one that I was watching. But the music that they had in a lot of the scenes, like, do you remember, Abel? Like, because I don't know if it was a comment we made. It was like, this sounds like a Disney ride, like you're on a Disney ride. The music that they were playing throughout the scenes.
I think it might have been the first one, but that does make sense now. Because I didn't realize Disney had bought it to distribute
Oh, I didn't know
and
that.
everything. And
Yeah,
so that,
just the first one. I
yeah,
feel like
so
they made big money off the first one and then abandoned the
the
remaining movies. Yeah.
yeah, which I mean, yeah, I kind of get, but it's also one of those things where it's like, damn it, like that they could
Oh
have
yeah.
done a little bit more. But this another reason, it's a little family secret. Like with my brothers and I watching these movies, we would, I mean, we were kids, we would um use our imagination and we would pretend to be the three ninjas. And my brothers would be Rocky and Cole. I got stuck being Tum Tum because I was the youngest. Um, but it was, I mean, so I think that also like always kept it resonate with me.
Hmm.
And just a memory that has stuck with me for so long and why I still enjoy watching the first three. The
Yeah.
first three.
Very much so. Yeah, I only have an older sister, but she's about 18 months older than me, so we always related to each other because we weren't too far apart in age. But we love this movie because we were part of that 90s craze of don't send your kid to football or soccer, send them to taekwondo. Get them a uniform that get all that spunky energy out so they come home and
Mm,
take a nap, sort of
yeah.
thing. But we did taekwondo. I know I started when I was 3. My parents put
Mm,
me in taekwondo, and I did it all the way until right before college. So until I was like 17, 18. And same with David. And yeah, I was a second degree junior black belt. I qualified for
wow.
the Ohio or for the Junior Olympics because I was an Ohio State champion as a kid.
Wow.
And so these movies, the ninja craze, so Surf Ninjas, Three Ninjas, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, there was like not kid movies because my dad's so many martial arts movies of this era were rated
Mhm.
R movies, like Steven
Yes.
Seagal, Jean Claude Van Damme, like all that stuff. he let me watch those far too early. It's shocking that I've turned out to be a relatively okay adult human being. But these connected with me so much when I saw kids doing
Yeah.
martial arts. And I know for sure the actor that played Rocky, he was actually a martial artist, and you can tell
Yeah.
he has
Oh
really
yeah.
good moves, and it doesn't tend to cut away that much to like a because I don't know, Ashley, you probably noticed this watching it fresh, is especially with the grandpa and with Tum Tum as well, when they would cut to a stuntman, it was a full grown stuntman. Like they'd go from 3 feet tall to like 6 feet tall, and you're just like not expected to notice that. And especially with the grandpa was so little and had a big pot belly. And when they would switch to a stuntman, it's like the baggiest pillow underneath of his ninja costume, and the guy's like super fit with this little like bulgy pillow. It was just so cheesy. But yeah, so this connected with me a lot just because of that martial arts connection to it. And I know my dad actually bought us white mask to paint them like Rocky, Colt, and Tum Tum. So I actually had the
Oh.
3 masks that I hand painted myself in my childhood room growing up. So I got to play, any of them, even though most of the time it was almost always Rocky. I'd say it was like maybe a 70-30 split. I would be Rocky and then I'd be Colt, but I was never
Mhm.
Tum Tum. Like when it came to candy eating, I was Tum Tum when it came to candy eating. But did you connect April with any of them more than other ones?
I I think mainly, yeah, just kind of because I was the youngest, Tum Tum, but I I think kind of more with especially in Knuckle Up.
Mm,
I connected, I think, more with Rocky and kind of being a little bit more level-headed and
yeah.
the peaceful one and everything. But yeah, for a while there it was Tum Tum just because the youngest, and that
Hmm.
was kind of the one
Well,
that I
because
was forced into.
in Knuckle Up, wasn't that he was recast to like an older actor too, wasn't he?
So Knuckle Up is the one
Oh,
that
it's
was
the original
filmed.
Rocky. Yeah, you're
Yes, it's
right.
the
You're right.
original Rocky because that's the Indian reservation one,
Right. Right.
which the kickback was the
Right. You're
one
right. Yeah. Hmm.
that when they went to Japan. And when I told Ashley, I was like, because we do the Prime shoot, like she uses my Prime or my Amazon for these and stuff. I was like, I got the
Uh-oh.
second
Jeff
one.
Bezos is gonna hear that and shut that down.
Oh,
uh, yeah, good luck with that. um but when I told her I got the second one, she texted me, she's like, you rented the third one. I was like, technically no, because I went off, because my mind, I go off of the release because that's
Right.
how I saw them.
Hmm.
And so that one was the second one, even though it was the last to be filmed.
Right.
And they changed Rocky and Tum Tum, and you can obviously tell that Colt is like 2 years older than a
Yeah.
Knuckle Up,
Hmm.
and because he had a massive growth spurt. And I'm like, no, this is for my brain, how
Hmm.
I watched it. This is the second one
Yeah.
because
it
this is
it was really trippy because they didn't even do a good job recasting him because Tum Tum was even shorter than what he was in the first
He
one. I'm
was
like,
he was
what is
real little.
happening? I was
Yeah.
like, what is going on here? I was really, really confused. I'm like, this is not the same kid, right? Like,
Yeah, it's like Rusty and Audrey in the vacation movies with Chevy Chase. It's like
yes,
they age
yes.
and grow and change and like have different hair colors. Like, yeah, I guess they just didn't think we paid attention to that stuff back in the day. But it's weird because even when you watch the Knuckle Up,
Uh-huh.
that's the Indian reservation one.
Yes.
When you watch that one, even Rocky, the actor that plays Rocky, there's certain scenes where he has braces and doesn't have braces. Do you notice that? And it
Yes.
changes so quickly to where it will be within 30 seconds where they're traveling from one area to a next area. So chronologically, it's supposed to be happening back to back. And in the beginning scene, he has no braces. The next
Mhm.
scene, he has braces. And then he goes back to no braces, like just a split second later. And I'm like, how did they film that movie. It seemed like it was all over the place. And even Rocky, that actor seemed like he had growth spurts in that movie where he looked more like a middle schooler and not like an elementary school kid. And it was just jarringly back and forth that whole entire time. So I don't know what happened in that movie that it was so
Uh,
just hodgepodge together.
that, and if you notice, he went through like his voice changing
Hmm.
too.
Yeah.
There are certain scenes in Knuckle Up where he sounds like a little 12-year-old kid and
Hmm.
everything, but then like his voice like suddenly just gets deeper. And
Hmm.
it's you can really tell when they are in the saloon scene
Hmm.
and getting ready, like him and Tum Tum are about to do like the little dance where they are kicking the bikers butts and everything.
Right.
um it like all of a sudden just drops like super like octave down, and it's
Hmm.
like that is so, but then like scenes later it's back up to kind of
Right.
his child voice,
Hmm.
and it just throws you off
It does.
so bad.
I was surprised because I remember as a kid really liking Rocky, like you said, April, that like he seemed level headed. He seemed like kind of like how like in Ninja Turtles wasn't is Michelangelo was the more level headed one. I
And
feel
Mike,
like
no,
or no, sorry,
Michelangelo
I'm
was
saying it wrong. It was Leonardo, right?
Leonardo,
Yes,
yeah,
Leonardo.
yeah.
Geez,
Yeah, no,
I feel
Mike.
like David, because David has a hard like he couldn't even remember the four turtles' names, so he's gonna get me now because I miss. And Michelangelo's my favorite. He's the wild, crazy,
Yes,
pizza-loving
yes,
nunchucks, or yeah, the orange one. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, no, I felt like they were trying to make Rocky like how Leo was. That he's like,
yeah.
well, Grandpa said it was very much well, Master Splinter said like it was the same
Mhm.
thing. Um, but I know my sister really loved Rocky because he had kind of like Jonathan Taylor Thomas vibes a little bit. Like
He,
he looked very similar to him in that era. Um, which is surprising that like none of these, like you would think that Rocky and Colt would have been part of that teen bop Tiger Beat phase because of that
yeah.
era, and I don't quite know why they weren't. Maybe they didn't have very good publicists, or they had good parents that just kept them out of that part of
I
child stardom.
I think it was more parents, and I know the actor who played Rocky in those, I mean, this was really all he ever did.
Hmm.
He he wanted done. Like I think there was something with like after the first one came out, it was maybe being picked on at school or something like that and not really being taken seriously because he was, like you were saying, he was truly I think by the time the second one came out, he was a junior black belt or something,
Hmm.
or the Knuckle Up came out. And so I think he was wanting to focus more on that, whereas the actor who played Colt did do a couple other things. He was in, what was it? Was it Apollo 13, I think?
Oh, you're right. You're right. I think
Yeah,
he was Tom Hanks's kid, wasn't he?
kid.
Yeah.
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 And so he did do a couple of things, but just didn't, I don't know. I think maybe the parents kind of kept him a little closer to home and gave him more of a childhood. You can't find like any of them
Oh
anywhere.
no. Yeah,
Like,
I think I ended up finding a thing that was mentioning that they all have very basic careers. They've turned into like normal guys that
mm,
let me see here. I think that one of them was actually like yeah, Max Elliott Slade, I think, who plays Colt,
yeah.
is he has a degree in anthropology and went to the University of Southern California and now currently teaches yoga. um,
Mm.
and Michael Trainer, who played Rocky, works in financial services in Washington D.C., but still practices karate, so he's keeping his ninja skills sharp.
Yeah.
And Chad Power, who played the original Tum Tum, is an assistant high school football coach in his hometown. So
Hmm.
honestly, I feel like when you look at some of the outcomes of child actors, it's maybe isn't a bad thing that they actually
Yeah.
got out when they got out because I mean we all know from this era of nostalgia, I mean, there's kids that didn't make it out of being kids, like River Phoenix and things like that.
Mhm.
But then there's, I mean, Macaulay Culkin had a really rough time. And seeing him now as a guy in his 40s who is level-headed but is very much arm's length from Hollywood, that he just doesn't even want to dip his toe back in. Which is interesting considering like what his brother Kieran Culkin is like
Yep.
in Succession and is like a super good actor, and somehow he dodged it, but he was younger, I feel like,
Mhm.
than he was.
There is something I had seen, I can't remember if it was Instagram or Facebook. Actually, I don't remember if I sent it to you,
Oh,
but
the
it was
meme?
talking the meme, yeah, where it was talking about how it back in the 90s, did you ever think that the more popular uh Culkin or Olsen would be the younger siblings?
Oh yeah.
Because like now, like it's kind of the same with Elizabeth Olsen.
Oh, for
She's
sure.
like I don't necessarily think she's bypassed her sisters, because if like you do the whole inflation and everything, I'm sure like what Mary Kay and Ashley had made back in the 90s and
Oh
early
yeah.
2000s just blows everybody through the roof. But she's now like center main focus. Like Mary Kay and Ashley have taken steps back. They're not
Yeah.
involved in Hollywood. And it's the same with Macaulay Culkin and Kieran. Um,
Because wasn't he
it's
Fuller in the original Home Alone? He was like a cousin that he was the
I
bedwetter that he
Mhm.
I
didn't
think
want to share
so,
a room with.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
really funny that the kid that was like the nerdy bedwetter that nobody wanted, like, and liked as a little kid, is now like you watch him in Succession. He's still what? Because he's the youngest kid in Succession, and he's still kind of schmarmy and has like Fuller vibes. But he's super cool now. Like he's
Yeah,
such a great actor. But yeah, it's interesting.
it really is. And it's what is interesting to me is like you're saying, none of these kids, even the kickback Rocky or Tum Tum, really did anything else.
Mm-mm.
They were kind of more one and done's type of deals. But it's very interesting. Now let's kind of transition to kickback. So for those of you who don't quite know what we're talking about, the second movie released in the Three Ninjas was Three Ninjas Kickback, but it was actually the third one filmed. And so the oldest and youngest were recast. And like Eric was saying, they kind of made it seem like, oh, we're recasting these people, and you're just, I mean, they're completely look different. It's not even like they could have been stunt doubles, body doubles, or anything. Um, like Rocky's got like jet black hair
Mm-hmm.
and is like probably 5'7", 5'8", like super tall. Um, but this is
Tum Tum's
it
like
is
2'7".
yeah, it really is.
He's like knee high on everybody for the whole movie.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because when you like look at the context of this one, it really is supposed to be the third one.
Hmm.
But for those of us who like watched them when they came out, it's gonna always be the second one to me.
Hmm.
Always gonna be the second one. But they're older, like branching into high school, middle school at this age, and
Still play on the same baseball team somehow, but we'll yeah.
yeah, which
Like how is Tum Tum on the same league as Rocky? That doesn't quite make sense in this movie.
yeah, like Colt and Rocky, definitely, like they're within the
Right.
age that it kind of you could pull Colt up to the older team and everything, but you couldn't pull Tum Tum.
No,
Like he was
no.
just way too far. But they're big on baseball, and they're kind of getting out of the whole ninja phase, and Grandpa is going to Japan for a competition, and the boys decide they're not going to go with them because it's going to be they would be gone during a tournament, a final game. But then they realize that bags got switched, and they have Grandpa's bag. Grandpa took Tum Tum's bag. by mistake, which what was it? The mousetrap in the bag or something?
Oh yeah.
Because
Why would you have a
everybody
loaded mousetrap? Why would it be fully cocked back? So like, because like, wouldn't that just hurt Tum Tum later? Like, it seemed weird that yeah. Why would you have a loaded mousetrap? But,
thought process is like to keep people from getting the candy, getting his snacks. But then, like you said, uh, I wouldn't see Tum Tum remembering that
No,
himself and
he's
just
not. He's not
diving
very
in.
sharp. Yeah.
No. And so
do we
there
have to
are
wonder, does Tum Tum have like diabetes as an adult now?
Oh,
Like
1000%. The amount of sugar he would
absolutely.
eat in one sitting, yeah, he if he was doing that at the age of 8,
Absolutely.
he's not making it.
Oh my gosh, yes. But I did like this one because of the different scenery. Like they went to
Mm.
Japan. Like
I did
that.
find that aspect of it cool. Like, and I watched this with my boyfriend, and he loves Japan. He loves all of those old like 90s cars and stuff. So getting to kind of watch that part of it, he made me like stop and rewind it at some point. He's like, "Oh, go back. There's a car there. I want to go back and watch the car." So he was all obsessed with that. But I did really like how they incorporated that into this movie, like going to a different location. I feel like that sort of helped the movie a little bit, because if they had kept it the same setting as the first one and the third one, I feel like it would have just gotten a little bit more redundant. So
Yeah.
I did like that part of it. Now, were they very culturally accurate with it? No. But
Well, I found a thing that said that even though it was filmed in Japan and his dad or the grandpa is Japanese and ninjutsu is a Japanese art, all of the music that they would play in the movie when they were in Japan was Korean music. And I'm like,
Mhm.
who let that slide?
Yeah.
Like that just seems so problematic that you're just like, ah, whatever. We'll just put in Korean music. These American kids watching it will know no difference.
I did like the
Yeah.
soundtrack though. It was really
Oh,
good.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think they weirdly to me, it also like how April was saying, it feels like the second installment, not only because of the name. I feel like the name progression, like Kickback, seems like, oh, that's a sequel. Like that's the
Mhm.
Yeah.
second one. And that Knuckle Up sounds like a trilogy name. But the way I thought that the production value seemed to increase from the first one to the second one, and I did
Yeah.
end up looking up that the first one actually only had a $6.5 million budget, but
Mhm.
made $29 million. So I mean, it quadrupled its profit. So I think that that's why they were like, let's rush a second movie so quickly, but
Mhm.
they rushed it. I think Disney backed out. And so I got kind of held up in the distribution rights. And then somehow I feel like it was a completely other director and a completely other studio started Kickback while all the distribution issues were happening. And that in Kickback, they increased the budget from 6.5 million to 20 million. But
Mhm.
Mhm.
sadly, they only made 11.7. Like they lost half their
Yeah.
money on this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So also with Kickback, it was a different director, but it was actually the director who did it. It was one of his last movies because I was reading this, he and his family had to escape wherever they were.
Oh,
And
I think it was North Korea, wasn't it?
yeah, so I
Yeah.
think so because he was doing like propaganda stuff too, or something like that. And so that's probably why there was the Korean music was because he
Oh, that
was
makes sense. Yeah,
but
because I saw something that this movie also, because that makes more sense now. Because one of the things that I saw was that Kim Jong Un, who's the emperor, or whatever, I don't know if it's emperor, or whatever the name is
uh
in North Korea, um, his favorite movie is Three Ninjas Kickback, and he specifically when he was like a kid and Kim Jong Il, his dad was the emperor at the time, like he specifically loved it so much that part of they have their own North Korean studios, like Hollywood system. They don't have outsiders. Like they're so
uh
shut locked out that they completely remade this movie almost identical, but just with a full Korean cast, just so little Kim Jong Un could watch it whenever he wanted.
wow.
Um, but that makes more sense now that Kim Jong Un like had this director, because isn't his name Shin, I believe?
Yeah,
That yeah, I read something that yeah, he had to escape many years of kind of being this like
yeah,
indentured servant for North Korea, and then came over here and made these trilogies and stuff. That's pretty crazy when you think about it. That if he wouldn't have escaped North Korea, Three Ninjas wouldn't even be a thing. Like we know, like
mhm,
because it was his idea. That's pretty cool.
yeah. It's it is very interesting to say the least. But I do have to say that one of the scenes in this movie that always stuck with me was the sumo
Oh,
wrestling scene.
it's very revealing uniforms. You're like two large Asian man's butt cheeks, right in your face. I had forgotten about that until I did the rewatch, and I'm like, oh yeah, Tum Tum is obsessed with sumo. Like he wants to be
Because
a
I can
sumo
eat
wrestler. Yeah,
so much.
yeah,
That's true. Maybe he's a sumo wrestler as an
yeah.
adult.
Could be. It could be. Yeah, I actually saw. It's a tangent, but I saw something recently. There was a documentary about young kids who want to be sumo wrestlers in Japan, and that they do like part of their training is they get fed like 3 times the amount of calories at school, at home, like, and it's considered like a badge of honor to be that size. It's not considered unhealthy.
Hmm.
And but at the same time, they said that sumo wrestlers out of any other athlete have the shortest lifespan,
Yeah.
because of that, because you're just eating
Mm,
constantly, and nobody's saying it's bad. They're just saying, "Oh,
right.
you're powerful, you're strong, you're an icon." Like Tom Brady, there is a sumo wrestler that's 450 pounds. Like it's really
Yeah.
nuts. But yeah, I couldn't. In this day and age, it's kind of surprising that that's still a thing, but it's so imprinted in their culture. Like
Yeah.
Hmm.
it's still a massive sport even in 2023. Pun intended. But yeah, I agree with you both though. I like the Japanese switch on this because it's similar. Did you guys grow up on Karate Kid, the
Yes.
original
Hmm.
trilogy, but then the next Karate Kid as well? Because the sequel to Karate Kid 1 is in Japan as well. That he
Yeah.
follows Mr.
Um,
Miyagi, he learns from actual Japanese arts and things like that. So this followed right in line with that same storyline, 1,000%. Yeah.
Yeah. I did like how they kept kind of the three goons, we'll
Hmm.
call them, like another group of them, but just three three goons that are can't get anything right and
Hmm.
fuck up in every way, shape, and form. And so
Yeah.
then the other guys have to come in and figure shit out. But I did like it, and I liked how they had to kind of like grow up in a sense and like, okay, baseball's not the most important thing in the
Right.
world.
Hmm.
Like family and taking care of your family, like your grandpa got in a car accident because of these goons trying to hurt it and
Hmm.
everything. So
Well, and especially it's
that
like if you thought the American healthcare system was bad, the nurse
ugh,
in this movie
oh
is like straight up abusing a patient. It was like,
yeah.
but at the same time, man, Grandpa was like talking some serious trash while he was on the phone with the kids. And it's just like, but I remember that as a kid that nurse was just terrifying to me. That I'm like, nurses are
Yes.
supposed to take care of you. Why is she like twisting his neck brace and like dropping an elbow on his knee? Like she was so brutal. But then again, he was quite rude. But yeah, I had forgotten about that whole storyline of how they ended up in Japan until rewatching it, of the bag swap, like you were saying, April, and that I like that. I think it's funny in such a 90s kind of trope of you make a good successful first movie and then the second movie has to have some sort of a grand increase in the plot line of these mystic katanas and daggers that open a golden legendary cave somewhere, and is given to the winner of this ninja tournament. But as a kid, that type of storyline was very cool to me because of how grand it was. And I know for me, one of my child kind of core memories from this one is the colorful ninja costumes. The when they go to the actual like first tournament that they're watching, that you're like yellow ninjas and blue ninjas and red ninjas, and there wasn't a single just normal black ninja costume. It was all
Yeah.
colorful. And that was like so neat to me as a kid. And I actually remember there was a Halloween one year where it's like, I don't know, did your parents make Halloween costumes for you in the 90s growing up? Like I feel like that was such a thing because there wasn't readily accessible Halloween
Yeah.
costumes except for the plastic mass
Mhm.
glorified trash bag ones you'd get from like
Yeah.
Walmart or something. But I remember because of this movie, there was a yellow ninja that looked so cool and like neon colored that my dad, out of yellow sweatpants, like made me a yellow ninja costume. And it was perfect because October in Northeast Ohio is like freezing rain and gross and nasty. And I was the only kid that was already bundled up. I didn't have to wear a winter jacket. I
Yeah.
was ready to go. But when I came back home, I was like a sponge. I was like just completely saturated in water. But that was such a cool sequence to me because of the colors. But yeah, I love that. The ninja tournament was a great idea for the second movie.
I also really liked the the hang gliding
Yeah.
scene where they were like hang gliding, and then when they got out of the hidden treasure area, like that where they like slid down or whatever. I always thought, this is also now being living in Florida with all the theme parks, that that would be such like a cool ride,
Mm,
like escaping from a 1,000-year-old freaking cave that's like starting to collapse, and you have to slide down
yeah.
this little area and everything. But those like that and the hang gliding scenes were also very prominent core memories for me.
Yeah. I feel like I can't remember the actor's name, but he's been in a decent amount of stuff as like a secondary actor, the guy that plays the villain in this one.
Uh-huh.
I feel like I've seen him in a lot of different stuff, as opposed to the guy that was the arms dealer in the first one. I feel like he kind of looked like the Wish version of Steven Seagal. Like he just wasn't cool to me, and he had a horrible accent that you couldn't pinpoint where he was from. But
Yeah.
this guy was cool to me because he had Shredder vibes a little bit to me. Like he had a very
Mhm.
sinister voice, and I like that he wore like samurai attire and like knew how to use a katana and stuff like that. Um, but again, also like the storyline is so similar in that way to Karate Kid 2 because
Yeah.
in Karate Kid 2 they had Miyagi had a somebody that he grew up with that they kind of broke ties and now are each other's mortal enemies. I think his name was Sato in
Yeah.
Karate Kid 2. So this very much was Sato, and instead of like in Karate Kid 2 you had like do you watch Cobra Kai by chance, the modern
Mm-mm.
version now?
I have my husband and I have, and we didn't actually meet them while they were there and everything, but MegaCon in Orlando
Uh-huh.
had a lot of the cast, like including Ralph Macchio,
Oh,
William
cool.
Zaba, and some of the kids too. But they bringing all those different characters back
Yeah.
that they're doing
Well,
in that.
because now they've brought back the as much because like in this movie in Kickback you have the main bad guy that is
Mhm.
the henchman of the grandpa. But then in this, it's like you have this cheesy nephew that just can't get anything done and has the long white hair and is just this
Yeah.
rocker who just like always has a wireless microphone on him and just sings for no reason in this movie. It's definitely that's the deviation from Karate Kid 2 to here
Yeah.
is that there isn't this cool nephew like in Karate Kid 2 that his name was Chosen. He was like the scariest villain in an 80s movie. So I guess they had to have one thing in this that wasn't Karate Kid 2, like, so they wouldn't get sued, I guess, maybe. And
Probably.
that was the component, maybe. But yeah.
So actually talking about the villain in Three Ninjas Kickback, I'm afraid to even try to pronounce his name and everything. But just looking at his filmography, he was he's actually in the live action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3.
Oh.
Um,
Oh, yeah, that I can't. Okay, so
Lord,
they go to Japan. They like time travel back to like feudal Japan, I think, in that one.
yeah, I think if it's been so long since I've seen that one, but
It's the
yeah,
worst of the trilogy by far. You don't remember it because it was bad.
yeah, exactly. But he is actually in that one, so I just thought that was interesting because, like you said, kind of had a little bit of Shredder vibes and everything. Um,
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like I vaguely do remember him in that because he does. He has such a. David and I talk about that a lot, especially in episodes where we break down villains in movies,
mhm.
and it is just. It always makes me curious if you bumped into the actual person that plays these roles, that to find out if they're like the sweetest human being ever, and that they don't have the sinister voice, and they don't sit there and have this like intense glare, but somehow they just get typecast as this crazy intense person that terrifies everybody. But yeah, I definitely thought the villain in this was um I think the best villain of all of them. But at the same time, I do I never paid attention to it as a kid, but I do remember the whole kind of storyline of Grandpa teaching Colt to focus on a target until it
Uh-huh.
becomes as big as a melon, like, and he does it in
Yes.
baseball. Because I couldn't remember until I watched this movie that I was like, I remember a baseball movie where a kid swings the bat and the ball is the size of like a beach ball. And I couldn't for the life of me remember it until I watched this movie and I'm like, oh, it's from Kickback. Um,
Yeah.
but I then remembered watching the rewatch of like randomly Colt has a ball bearing that's just big enough to throw into the villain's, barrel of his gun.
Yeah.
Um, and it's so weird to me that it goes from this guy about to kill children, about to shoot children, and then 30 seconds later, he realizes the error of his ways and like calls off his henchmen and apologizes to the grandpa for like 40 years of bad experiences with each other. I really think he was just dodging a jail sentence because he had just tried to attempted child murder 30 seconds prior in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff wrong with the movies, but something fun that you could do while watching the movies is you could play a drinking game and be very drunk for an amount of times that they say hiya throughout the movie.
It's true, especially Tum Tum.
Oh my
Tum Tum, I feel
gosh.
like that. He's like, hiya, hiya. Like it's constant. Or let's myrtleize him. That's another one. I feel like that's like his
Yes.
big slogan. Or ninjanuity. Like they tried to make a
Oh.
random word that you've never heard of before. Yeah, you get quite wasted for sure.
For sure. I do. Speaking of like the let's brutalize them, because the big scene for that is when they're fighting for baseball and
Mhm.
everything. But I l- I always found it entertaining because like my brothers play baseball, I played softball, so kind of understood this, but like how he had a timer of when certain food vendors would get there and
Yeah.
he'd go run and get his food and like what was it, there was the one time where he like tried to tag somebody out or something, but instead of having the baseball he had the hot dog in
Yeah.
his, and or like they both were thrown up and he's like, which one do you go after? He goes to save the hot dog.
Right.
um but there is definitely this movie was very campy, I
Yes.
feel.
Mm.
Yeah, I feel like
Very.
from the first one to this one, and then especially when we talk about Knuckle Up, the amount of comedic noises and like the boings, like cartoon Looney Tunes sort of sounds, just went through the roof. I feel like in these two movies, and I don't know why they deviated from how they did the first one, because yeah, the first one still was a little campy, but more so cheesy when they fought people. But at the same time, it was kind of convincing that these three kids knew ninjutsu. But yeah, these second two, I don't know why it is so kind of like Adam West, Batman and Robin feeling, and you're expecting to see pals and zaps on the
Yeah.
screen and stuff like that. But yeah, I wonder why they made that choice. Maybe they thought they could get even younger kids to watch it because it feels like a cartoon. I'm not sure, but yeah, I do. I think that I agree with you, April. This one to me um, is the second one, and that I very much overlooked that as a kid, even though they have these like distribution issues. Because yeah, when you go to the third one with Knuckle Up, it's just it is interesting to see all the same boys back, and that's kind of
Yeah.
nice. But at the same time, it's such a step down in production value to Knuckle Up. Like you could tell that they were hurting for budget, and that they were
Yeah.
clearly having studio issues because it's a little wobbly compared to these two.
Not
So,
only
oh, go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so with the third one, I'm just gonna have to admit, I did not watch. I couldn't watch but like 5 minutes of it and I was done.
Yeah, it's 90 minutes of your life that you saved. Like, good for you. Because there's part of me that wished I would have turned it off because I was just like, whew, this is
Okay.
bad.
So
April probably loves it. Here she goes.
Uh-oh.
honestly,
Is this your
It's her
favorite
favorite of
one?
the trilogy.
it really is.
Oh,
It really is. And I don't know, like that's why I even went ahead and just fucking bought it. And everything. Like I didn't even read
You're
I
the
didn't
only
even
person
read
that's bought it.
I probably am, honestly. But I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just kind of the super like westerny Indian reservation like type thing where I've always been very interested in that. And granted, I don't take any of this movie as like truth or
Yeah.
anything because it is just so not culturally appropriate at all.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think I liked how there was the difference, like the kind of like the powwow scene or whatever, where everybody kind of was like it was kind of finally a hey, we're not gonna let these guys bully us and everything. So everybody's fighting back. And just kind of that mentality. But yes, it is one of my favorites. I love the I love like the pizza scene where they're fighting the pizza parlor and everything. And Rocky's like not even paying attention and he's just playing his game.
Mhm.
Like because that is such a kid thing to do is
Yeah.
like be so zoned in a game like you don't notice anything until somebody freaking knocks
Mhm.
into you.
Well, it's
And
funny too because in that same scene, he goes from like trying to be the level-headed one that tells Colt not to fight, but at the same time, he's like punching a dude in the face. Like he's like punches somebody and goes, "Colt, don't fight," and then he keeps like punching and kicking like 5 or 6 people, and I'm like, Rocky, you're fighting. Like, like, why are you telling
yeah.
other people not to fight? You're beating up a grown man right now. Like, it was really weird that he's just like, you're part of the fight here. Like, you're liable as well. But,
Yeah.
um,
And I think part of it too, for me, was this one actually has other people too that are have done other things. Like the guy who plays JJ, the main three goons. Again, there's always those three goons and everything.
mhm. But he's like the
He is
lead goon.
yeah,
Yeah,
he's the
he's
one
been in a ton of stuff. Yeah.
he's been in so much. And then the sheriff was the umpire in Kickback.
Hmm.
So they did pull somebody else. And then there even the main bad guy
Hmm.
has been in a lot of other things.
Hmm.
And so seeing those connections, I think that's maybe part of why I like this one a lot. Plus, I don't know, like just that whole I don't know. It's one of those things where I can't quite put my finger on it as to why this movie stuck out as opposed to the others.
Do you
Um,
think it was the kind of, because I do agree with you that I like the as much as like the Japanese setting in Kickback, I like the cultural inclusion of the storyline of, because like the way you're talking about this is the same way I would describe Ernest Goes to Camp. Did you ever watch the Ernest movies as a kid?
I love those.
I haven't seen
Yeah.
those since I was
Finally,
a
I
kid.
got Ashley here. She know, like I feel like I've made references, and you're like, no, I don't know. But like this, she's an Ernest fan. Here we go. Ernest Goes to Camp had almost the exact same storyline, where it had a
Okay.
Native American storyline with kids on a camp that were I think it was like Camp Kikawa or something like that. And it's just, I watched it so much as a kid because they really tried to introduce kids in that era to understanding the importance of nature and preserving
Yes.
nature. And I feel like for some reason they hitched it to a Native American storyline. And that was like they were trying to destroy this historic campground that had like Native American heritage. And it had the same sort of like mysticism that this movie pulls in at different points and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it connected with me the most. I mean, there's like probably like 6 or 7 Ernest movies, and Ernest Goes to
Yeah.
Camp, because of that Native American part of it, really connected with me in a way that just I can't quite explain. So I get what you're
Yeah.
saying.
With
Yeah. I think
Knuckle Up, so did they, by the end, did they like follow through with it having a like environmental type message where they were saying that what they were doing wasn't good, or is that kind of where it eventually went with it?
Yeah, so kind of give you a breakdown. So with you said you watched about the first 5 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So did you get to the pizza parlor scene?
The one where he pushes the girl down?
Yes.
That
yeah, like of course
that was,
beer and
after
everything.
that I was like, nope, I can't. That was terrible.
It's quite actually like an
That-
intense scene too, because it's not a
Yeah.
stunt. They didn't use a stunt person for that. He actually shoves her on the ground. Like it's just
Well,
like,
not
I
only
thought it was
that, but
quite, and
like
pouring the beer on her.
Yeah.
It was
And the-
really crazy.
nobody doing a thing, like no
Grown men.
adults.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Nobody stepped up, and
that-
I'm like, what is going on? Yeah.
And the
Like,
kids have
watching
to
as a
step in.
kid,
Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah, watching as a kid, you're like, oh yay, kids save the day. But like watching it as an adult, you're like, you're just you can't even like begin to describe the disgust
Yeah.
in seeing that kind of a scene.
Right.
And like, okay, then you start to think, would I have the balls myself if I saw that happening in front of me? Would I have the balls to step in? Or you kind of start to like wonder and everything. But so kind of to give you a little lowdown, so yes, Ashley, it does have a bit of an environmental aspect to it, and it does end in a good way. Her dad, Joe's dad, was working for this corporate guy and everything, this bad evil guy. And
Is it a dump?
they
Like a trash dump that they have? I think
yes,
a landfill.
so
Yeah.
what they are using this land that they have leased or whatever, or bought from the Native Americans, and they are turning it into a landfill. And the dad had been doing some like inputting information or whatever, and he found that they were dumping bad chemicals into the ground. And so he put it on a little floppy disk and he took that home, hid it, and then next day he disappeared. And they can't find the disc, any of that kind of thing. But once the boys find where they're holding the dad, they go back to Joe and they're like, we found him. And so then they plan on that night going and rescuing him. And she's got like bow and arrow and I don't know what it's called. I don't know the term for it, but the holder for the arrows, the disc is in there.
Mm.
And so when it's very Home Alone-y once they rescue him, and there's all these guys coming towards them, like they throw out the jacks or whatever, and they're like doing the what, I don't even know what that that weapon is called, where the slingshot, is it a slingshot
Is
or
it the one where like they throw it has the two balls on the end and it like wraps around their
yeah,
feet and they fall? I don't know what you're
yeah.
thinking. They
um
have like a lot of ninjanuity scenes where they make weapons. Like I think like
yeah.
there's one scene where like Rocky takes like a broomstick, cuts it in half, and then finds like a little like three links of chain and hammers it into him, and then he has like nunchucks and
Nunchucks,
yeah.
yeah. But so while she's shooting these arrows, and she's like, they're not like true arrowhead or anything like that. The dad sees that it's got the disc. And so he's like, stop, don't do anymore. So then like guys come and like they're fighting, and the pack or whatever it is gets thrown onto this like conveyor belt. And
It's like this shaking
yeah,
comical.
it's like
So they have a fight scene on it, and the bad guys are like
it's like
everybody's bouncing around. It's so campy.
it is so campy, but so entertaining. Like I may just have to like find a clip of that scene just for you to watch and just get a kick out of it. But it's because they're like, he's like, the disc is up, we gotta get that, the disc is there, the disc, get the disc. And so they get the disc, and there's like a hearing happening supposedly the next day, but it's actually 2 days, ends up being 2 days later on film. Did you notice that? Like, because
Yeah.
it's the next day, but then the next night they're doing the little powwow thing or whatever.
And that's one of the scenes where it's like when they do the powwow, Rocky doesn't have braces. When they go to the hearing the next day, he does have braces. And then when the movie ends, he doesn't have braces anymore. Like it's just but it's supposed to be chronological, yeah.
Yeah. But then they like get the bad guy gets like bikers to pretty much kidnap Joe, to blackmail the dad into not handing over this disc during the hearing. And so, of course, the boys go, they rescue Joe. There's a funny car scene where like Rocky's driving, and like you can only see like this much of him, like when they have it coming from the wind, like from the front of the car, like while he's driving, he's just like barely seeing over the steering wheel. But he's had practice. It's just like the arcade, just not wasting quarters. But they do end up getting there to where the dad hands over the right disc. He starts off by handing over a blank like weather disc, and then once he finally does, it shuts them down and everything, and the Native Americans are, I think, awarded back their land
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything. So
Because I think in the beginning of the movie, you probably missed it, Ashley, that like when they show the landfill, like they show that I think they're trying to tell the government officials that it's just a normal landfill. There's nothing toxic here. And
yeah,
yet they are lying. And the disc shows all of, like, again, why do you have a disc that shows a list of all the toxic things? Like, who made the list? Why are you making this list?
Yeah.
Like, it's just incriminating evidence waiting to happen. But no, like there's quite as much as there's the scene of the little girl that they pour the beer on and they shove her down. There's a scene where all the henchmen like go to the landfill where there's like a protest happening, and they just start beating up like men, women, and children who are there that are Native Americans trying to just fight and protest and get their land back. And the sheriff, like Aprill mentioned, that's the umpire from Kickback, is the worst cop ever. Like he does nothing about these henchmen like punching people, like women and children, and all of this stuff. Nothing whatsoever. But yeah, so it does. I do feel like they did a good job of like that storyline of. I understood as a kid, because that's the main part I do remember watching this as a kid, is that, oh, how dare they do that to their land,
Yeah.
and they make reference to people dying as well. That like
Because
that
of
there's
it.
yeah, because of it. So they try to make it a very serious part of the storyline. Yeah. But it is
Yeah.
just it's very I can understand why you stopped in the first 5 minutes. Not having nostalgia, I can see why you're just like, yep, this is a
Yeah.
bit much.
Yep.
Yeah.
I tried.
Okay. I'll give you this one, but you're gonna have to watch all of Three Ninjas. Or not Three Ninjas, Surf Ninjas. You're gonna
Oh,
have
yeah.
to. You're gonna
Surf
have to
Ninjas is
push through
great.
that one.
I'll come back for a Surf Ninjas episode for sure.
Okay.
That might be my favorite of all ninja movies from that era. Is Surf Ninjas.
Surf Ninjas and Double Dragon were also top ones for me. I
And
won't
I
make
feel like if you haven't seen Double Dragon, Ashley, you won't make it 60 seconds into Double Dragon. Like, that
actually
one's
you
real bad.
might, Ashley, because Alyssa Milano is in Double Dragon.
Oh, and she looks sick too.
Ooh.
She's got like white short hair. Like
Hmm.
she's like a punk rocker. Like she looks really cool in that movie.
Interesting.
You had a little bit of a crush on her back in the day because of that movie.
Mark, I can never pronounce his last name.
Dacascos?
Dacascos.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was because of that movie and everything. Definitely. But yeah, well, we may have to watch that when you come over for
Yeah, we need to
90s
do it as
Con.
like a sleepover thing.
Yeah, you're
'cause,
gonna
like,
need to watch. Because I'll make sure you
couple drinks and we'll be good.
Yeah, because Double Dragon, like that one, I definitely understand. Like not being like you without me there, you would not be able to get past like the first 2 minutes of it. I can guarantee that it is so campy and so cheesy.
And has like nothing to do with the original video game that they made it
Nothing,
about. Like nothing
nothing at
whatsoever.
all. Nothing at all. And isn't it supposed to take place in like 2023 or something like that?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a
Oh.
futuristic movie.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, that will be one we'll have to do together. But
I am
and all
surprised, April, that like I feel like you're the first person that I've talked to that normally. So you do think that Knuckle Up is better than the first one in your like nostalgic mind?
in my nostalgic mind, probably because like I said, I enjoyed the Native American aspect, even again, disclaimer, I know it's not accurate at all. With the
But at
exception
the
of
time I feel like they were trying. Like I
they
think
were
that's
trying.
what people don't. I think sometimes when people look back on these things, because I would assume Ernest Goes to Camp is probably the same way, is that like I think that was the only way they knew how at the time
Yeah.
to put
Mhm.
that in a
And
storyline.
right. And so yeah, I probably would have to say this would be my favorite. I love the whole scene, the whole like slew of scenes when they're going to rescue Joe also. And like I said, the whole dance scene with Rocky and Tum Tum, like the different dances and
Yeah, there's
doing
2 dance breaks in this movie that you missed out on, Ashley.
Yeah.
Darn.
Well, there's one later on. It's like, are either of you Office fans? Like, did you watch the show The Office?
Oh yeah, I love The Office.
Like, do you remember that Michael Scott had the scarn, the dance that he would do?
Yeah.
That he's like, shake to the right, and you do like that whole thing. They have a scene like that on the Indian reservation later in the movie, where somehow
Oh.
all of these like Native Americans
Just
know
know.
their dance. They just know all the moves.
Of course they do.
Yeah, so it's when you watch it, all I saw was Michael Scott doing the scarn dance.
Oh my gosh.
It is definitely probably the number one of these three for me. And
Where would
I
you
don't know,
rank
maybe
the other two? Like, what would be your second and third?
it would probably be a very close. Honestly, Kickback would probably have to be second and the
Wow.
original number 3. I think just again because of like the Japanese aspect of Kickback and the original, I didn't care for the, like, I thought it was kind of a weak bad guy
Yeah.
and everything. Whereas the second and third one, I kind of I hated them more. Like
Right.
the first one, I was kind of just like towards the bad guy, but the second and third, I kind of had more stronger feelings against. But but the very bottom of the barrel on this is definitely High Noon Mega Mountain,
Yeah.
which we will touch in just 2 seconds interval here. So
Yeah.
Eric, you said you never had seen it, correct?
I had never seen it, and on Apple TV they had a trailer for it, and the trailer is so brutal that that's as far as I made it. Is a 90-second trailer that I'm like, this is a hard pass. I was like, April
It,
said we're only talking about the 3, so I'm not gonna
yeah,
watch the 4th.
no, like this is almost kind of like the how the we've got the 3 live action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then there's that 2007
Oh.
animated or whatever CGI one that nobody really talks about. That's
Mhm.
kind of how the High Noon at Mega Mountain is. Um, completely different cast of kids.
Mhm.
Uh,
Grandpa's the same, I
there's
think, though.
grandpa and the parents are the same. Those are the only same actors. But it does have the guy who plays Ernest. He
Oh,
is
Jim
in it.
Varney's in it? Oh, really?
Yes, Jim Varney is in it along with Hulk Hogan. Uh,
Is Jim Varney a bad guy?
yes, he is.
Oh, interesting.
Nice.
Which
Interesting.
does make it very interesting. It is one that was the only 3 ninjas that one of the local stores had to rent.
Mhm.
And so I would rent it and watch it because if I couldn't find anything, I would just go to that one.
I can tell you right now, April, if you are lying to me that Jim Varney, because you know I mentioned how much I love Ernest, if you're lying to me that Jim
I'm
Varney's in
not.
this movie and I
I'm
rent
not.
it and he doesn't show up, so help me God.
Oh, I promise you.
I will write mean
So,
comments on every of your Instagram posts.
Uh-oh.
so I don't know if you can,
No, we
can't
cannot
really,
see.
I'm trying. So
Oh,
like right here, if you
okay.
look, IMDb, Jim Varney,
Okay.
right there,
She
right
photoshopped
there.
this. It's not there.
I did not.
This is
So
an
it's got,
elaborate scheme.
Right?
so it really, like I said, it's an interesting one. This is probably one that you don't want to watch sober at all. Like
Yeah,
at all.
maybe David and I can do it as a drunken review. We'll take your
Yeah.
guys' idea and do a YouTube video that we're just
Yeah.
hammered and ripping into this movie because we
It,
both love Hulk Hogan. Like Hulk Hogan, the say your prayers and eat your vitamins, like
mhm.
it was just so targeted at little boys of the 80s and 90s. But his movies were just
Oh
so
my
bad.
gosh.
Like
Mm.
Oh,
so bad.
horrendous. But this one is just so it's actually this one did scar me. High Noon and Mega Mountain scarred me a little bit. I would not ride a roller coaster that went upside down for the longest time. So this movie came out in 1998. So I was 7. I think I was 16, 14, 16 before I rode it
Wow.
until I did one that went upside
Does
down.
somebody fall out or something?
No, so
Okay.
just kind of I'll just give you a quick, do you want me to give you a quick premise of
I
it?
am
So
curious. I am
okay.
curious.
So they go to a theme park for Tum Tum's birthday, and Rocky he's off hanging out with his girlfriend and stuff, but he sees Colt and Tum Tum being chased by bad guys, so he runs off to go help his brothers. And so the girlfriend, her friend, and like these 2 cool guys that are trying to like nowadays would be trying to slide into her DMs and everything, go on a ride that goes upside or no, there's a ride that goes upside down, but she gets grabbed. And this is how long it's been because I'm like running things together. She gets grabbed by the bad guys because they had seen like a picture of Rocky and her together, and she gets like taken up onto a a roller coaster track and is like tied down, like the whole like animated type thing where
Mhm.
she's tied to the roller coaster track, and it is of a ride that goes upside down, and people are stuck. They are literally stuck while they're upside down because these bad guys are trying to control these rides and everything, and that's the one ride that they were able to get control over, and they stopped it when they are upside down, and they're using it to like blackmail the owner of the park, like bring millions of dollars or we're going to release the safety harnesses and all this kind of
This
stuff.
sounds vaguely
Uh,
familiar. It does sound
You
vaguely familiar.
you
I
might
might
have
have
watched
accidentally
it.
watched it and just like shunned it from my child brain. Because
Yeah.
that sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so like for me as a 7-year-old kid, seeing that and seeing the fact that like it can get stuck upside down, I'm like, hell no, hell no, hell no. I'm like, there's no way in hell. And like the little theme park that we had close to us in Kansas, it was in Kansas City, called Worlds of Fun. They had a ride at that time that would go upside down, and almost daily it was shut down for some reason.
Oh.
And so that even scarred me even more. But this movie like just put the like icing on the cake for that.
It makes sense
But
though. I still don't go in the ocean past my ankles because of watching Jaws at a very young
Oh,
age with my
ooh,
grandfather. I know
mm-mm.
that like even if it's freshwater, it's like sharks don't live in freshwater, and yet I won't go in past my ankles. Yeah, it
exactly.
get
Like,
locks in your child brain, no matter how irrational. It's like it's just it came at the right time that you're just like, nope, can't do it. I'm
mm,
almost 40, still can't do it. Yeah,
yeah,
that's funny.
like I said, it did take me a good long while, and I mean now I'll do pretty much any of the rides, just as long as it's not, as long as the incline's not 90 degrees, I'm good. But otherwise, yeah, but this movie, that was one thing that like stuck with me on the high noon at Mega Mountain. But
So did
I
it get in like a karate fight with Hulk Hogan? Because that just seems like so like he's like 6'4", like 280
so
pounds. It just seems so irrational to see three like practical toddlers
no,
fighting Hulk
they
Hogan.
don't.
Okay, good.
He his character is like an actor or a ninja show or something like that, and he puts on performances at this amusement park, and people get taken hostage, and they're all like, we thought you were real or something like that. And so yeah, his character is very dull in a sense in this movie.
Mm.
um
So is Jim Varney the main villain?
he is the main villain is played by Lonnie Anderson. It's a female,
That
which, so
name sounds familiar.
that's another like deviation from all the others, is a woman villain. But Varney's like her right hand,
Okay.
and so
Well, that
it
just goes to
is
like how misleading the cover of this movie is, because the cover of the movie is
exactly.
like is Hulk Hogan like splitting open it like a roller coaster, and he's like over top the three boys and stuff. Um, so they really were trying to pull people in just because of Hogan, and it's like they not the right horse to bet on for this movie, because
No,
I saw that this movie to this day since let's see, since 1998, like you were saying, it's made $375,000. That's
Well,
like
that's the thing.
that's
Like
nothing.
after the first three, why did they take the initiative to make a fourth one? Like, where were they trying to go with this story? Like, what?
Yeah, especially
and it
since
was
everybody that originally watched the three were older. Because 98, I was 13. I'm not
mhm.
watching a movie that's called High Noon
No,
at Mega Mountain. Like, I don't know. Maybe they were trying to get the next generation of younger kids. I'm not sure, but yeah, they've
yeah.
definitely failed miserably.
Are you ready for this? Let me see if it's still being listed. So when we first started doing uh getting our getting prepared for our podcast, we had like lists of like different movies in different years. and what we'd want to talk about and everything. And so I was looking for when Three Ninjas came out. It's okay. When I had initially been doing this, it was showing that there was going to be a new one released in 2023, like a
really?
remake of the
Oh.
first one. And so
We don't need that.
yeah, we definitely don't need this, but it does not have a release date. It is titled Three Ninjas Kicking Back. And it is based on the 1992 film.
They're thinking they're bringing back the original people?
No, there's no way
No,
the originals are coming back to this. There's no way.
They are
Three
pretty
Ninjas,
much like,
arthritis.
Yeah, is it going to be an adult version of everyone? Like,
okay, that honestly, I probably would watch if they did that. Like, but it looks like it is going to be back to the original Three Ninjas, but just different kids. And
well, they have
they can't.
a chance to make it better then, because now they kind of hopefully learn from the mistakes of the
Right.
originals and where not to go.
It
But
does
my
seem
only
like a Disney property. It seems like
Ugh.
Disney Plus would make a TV
Or
show
like
out
a
of this.
TV
Like,
show could be interesting. Yeah.
April doesn't like that idea.
No, I don't. I really don't. Especially, I mean, Victor Wong passed and everything.
Yeah, like
You-
in
you-
2001. He's been gone for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, you can't do Three Ninjas without him, without Grandpa.
Well, and I think it's the same as what they tried to do with Jackie Chan and is it
Mhm.
Jaden Smith? I
Yeah.
think
Mm.
it just bombed horribly as like a new Karate Kid.
Yeah.
I just think that you can't quite. I kind of feel like the generation that experienced something kind of has to be gone in a
Completely
sense.
gone.
Yeah, until they can bring certain things back.
Yeah.
And because I think it's the same with like when you look at Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai only works because everybody wanted to see Billy Zabka and wanted to see Ralph Macchio back on the screen. But you're
Mhm.
also giving us a hybrid. You're giving us the younger generation, but the old nostalgia too.
Mhm.
Exactly.
So I feel like the only way they could bring it back is if like it'd be intriguing if you had the three. Let me fantasy book here. Let's see if I can convince you, April, that like if you brought back the three guys that played the original Rocky, Colt, and Tum Tum, and they each had a boy, so their
That-
children
Oh.
became like so that they're what would they be? They'd all be would they be cousins then?
They'd all be cousins.
Yeah,
But
so it's like
you know what a nice little twist on that is if their dad was training the kids.
Oh,
The
yeah.
kids. Especially with him being so like against the
That would be
the
interesting. That would be very interesting because I do think throughout this whole entire trilogy, can we just say that their dad was the worst FBI agent of all time? Like that
Terrible.
like the investigation part of it clearly wasn't his forte. Like he had no idea where his kids were at any time,
yeah.
what they were doing. They're fighting grown men that he knows nothing about. It was always weird to me that he was an FBI person, and yet he was so typical 90s parent that knew nothing about his
Yeah.
kids. Like it
No.
was just, yeah, he definitely should not be part of the FBI.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a shame because but I think at the same time, Victor Wong, if he was still alive, he'd probably be in his 90s because he was,
Oh
I
yeah.
would think he was in his 60s in these movies. I would
I
Mhm.
think
assume.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he'd have to be up like the miracle of like Dick Van Dyke and those types of people who are like 98 and somehow clicking their heels
Still
and
kicking.
dancing and doing whatever they want to do. They're definitely not like Tum Tum. Not much candy eating going on, I guess, to make it that far. But
Yeah.
yeah, I am curious because I meant to look that up too because it seems like a franchise that has the ability for Disney to maybe think that they can make a quick buck off of it. But they've also never been able, like you said, April, they've never been able to bring back Ninja Turtles in the right way. Even the cartoon one that's coming out with that I think Seth Rogen is he like the director of? It's not the nostalgia I want. Like I am very like you, April. I'm very averse to it. I'm like, I don't want that. Like I want guys in rubber suits again.
I with me, I've got a very, I don't know if you've had listened to that episode of ours. My connection to turtles is to the core. Like
Yeah.
my brothers
Well, because
chose my
I
name
think I
because of
remember
that.
Ashley saying that when you watched it, you wished it was an animated movie instead of guys in rubber suits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm team rubber suit. Like that. Those
I'm
are my
team rubber
Ninja Turtles.
suit too. Yeah. Like that was just very much was very much my childhood and my namesake,
Mhm.
legitimately, because of the first one coming out in 1990. My brothers had seen it, they'd watched the cartoon, and they chose April over Stephanie because of it.
Oh, really? So you're
And
named after
yeah,
April O'Neil? That's super cool.
yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
then to top that, the number one movie on the day that I was born, the exact day, was Secret of the Ooze.
Nice. Nice. That's
So
awesome.
I am very, very much, it's killing me right now because we're having to decide like what conventions we go to and everything. And there's one coming up at the beginning of September in Orlando that has Kevin Eastman is going to be at, who is one
Hmm.
of the creators, the original creators of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, plus the voice actors from the original 1987
Oh,
animated.
cool.
And so I'm like, Ashley, that's the one that Holly's going to be at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is September is going to be kind of crazy because 90s con's going on in
And it's
Tampa.
coming.
That
Yeah, also it's coming down to you guys too. That's
yeah,
cool.
what
Yeah.
we're already going to be there. Like we literally like waited like at 10 a.m. when the tickets went on sale. We bought our tickets for it.
Are you
So
guys gonna do a podcast at 90s Con, like in the hotel or something like that?
Ooh, yeah, we're gonna have
we
to.
we're probably gonna have to, and then
I feel like you could get a lot of good Instagram content there
Mm-hmm.
as
yeah,
well to show you on the
we're
convention floor and things like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
that's a good idea.
yeah, we're definitely we're gonna be it's gonna be crazy. Like they've
Yeah.
already announced Boy Meets World cast being
Wow.
there.
Yeah, I wish that would, because where there was a one recently, right?
in
Like,
in Connecticut.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I wish you would think Cleveland would be, or Columbus maybe would be a big enough market, but they always seem to, the closest you see them get is like Philly and Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe like DC, but they're all like 8 or 9 hours that it's just a little bit too far. Because I tried to convince David, my co-host, to go to I think it's a fan expo is what they call it. It used to be called
Uh-huh.
Wizard World, I believe.
Oh
But the
yes.
fan expo in Philly that's coming, I think, in June, has Michael J. Fox,
Oh.
Christopher Lloyd.
Mm.
They got Tom Wilson that plays Biff. They have the whole
Mm-hmm.
cast coming, and it is a pretty penny to meet them. But it's
Oh
like to
yeah.
meet the whole cast would just be and Michael J. Fox eventually, in
He's
just a
not.
few short
He's
years, is not
Yeah.
going to do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And both David and I are just obsessed with Back to the Future, but it was just the timing of it. And he's on like, it's like exam week before his summer break for school.
Mm.
So he couldn't pull it off. So we're actually going I think it's also in June, but later, to a convention in Cedar Rapids that's much smaller, but I'm flying out to him and they have like the Power Rangers are going to be there. So I get to
Cool.
meet Kimberly because I had a
She's
massive
super
crush on the
nice.
Pink
Yes.
Ranger.
She is so
Because Amy
nice.
Jo Johnson, is that her name?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, she seems so sweet.
She is. I got to so MegaCon in Orlando is kind of the biggest one in Florida, honestly. And my first year, Amy Jo Johnson was there, so I got to meet her. The first year I went, super, super sweet. And then the following year, oh my gosh, the following year was crazy because that had like Kiefer Sutherland was my big one on
mm,
that. Uh and then that year they did have the Back to the Future group. It sounds like everybody that's going to be at that one that you're talking about, like Michael J. Fox, all of them. And I got to see Michael as I was in line for photo ops with, I think it was Stephen Amell.
Cool.
Like Michael had like the table closest to the photo op lines, and so I did get to see him, but he was just signing. They were handing him the stuff, sign.
Yeah.
He really wasn't talking much, just because it was very taxing for him
Right.
and everything. But it was cool to see him. Like, I mean, probably about 100 feet or so away once the line got to a certain point. But it's those conventions, it's great. But the smaller ones are a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, it's much easier and a lot less. I kind of get a little overstimulated with a large amount of people around, so I can only be on a convention floor for a little period. So the smaller ones, it's like you're not crammed in shoulder to shoulder. But yeah, my biggest one that I have is actually not a convention that's coming up. That my biggest nostalgic obsession is just Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, I just adore Arnold Schwarzenegger. Even his really cheesy, campy things I still love. But
Jingle
he
all the
just
way.
I love Jingle All the Way. I adore it. I watch it probably like the day after Thanksgiving. I'll probably watch it three to four different times until Christmas. And that's a very underrated one. There's people, you either love it or completely despise it. Like, there's no middle ground on that movie. But Arnold just started a fitness app, and part of being a founding member of it, where you buy a lifetime membership, is that he has a fitness expo in Columbus that's 2 hours south of me. And by becoming a founding member, he's having a meet and greet in February next year.
Cool.
And so I get to
Oh my
meet Arnold
gosh.
Schwarzenegger. And I think I'm going to take, because I have a life-size bust of him where it's Terminator 2. Half of his face is gone, and you see the chrome skeleton below it, and it looks just like him. I think I'm actually going to take it down with me and be like, hey, sign this for me.
Oh yeah.
He's gonna love that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. He seems like a lot of fun to me. Like,
I
everybody,
couldn't even imagine.
everybody that I've seen, like videos, like different fitness people have met him, and like when they meet him and stuff, he's just seems so genuinely fun
Yeah.
and enjoyable. And just, I don't know if you've ever watched when they'll do like make them be the wax figures
Oh, yeah.
and
I know what you're talking.
everything.
Yeah, I think they did it. It was like
And
Jimmy Kimmel. It was a bit, I think,
yeah,
on a late night show. Yeah.
and with Arnold like doing that and being the
Mhm.
Terminator, and then like just hi and
Yeah, people
everything.
lost their mind. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, absolutely.
I don't know if I'm gonna even be able to get out words. There's part of me that wants to give him a Bygone Geek sticker and hope that he listens, you know. But yeah, he's definitely. I think for both David and I, he's kind of like our action hero as kids, and Michael J. Fox is up there too, because I mean, I think the first Back to the Future was '85, so I kind of feel attached to it with it my birth year as well. But April, have you ever met the actress that played April O'Neil in the first movie? You ever come full circle?
I did actually. So it was really random. Back in November, this past November, I was just on Instagram scrolling, and I follow Ernie Reyes Jr., and I've talked to him numerous times, met him back last February. And so he had posted that he had flown into Tampa. And I messaged him like, what are you doing in Tampa? Like, what am I missing here?
Wait,
Like,
you direct message Ernie Reyes Jr.? What?
he's
My
super nice, super nice.
Wow.
And he messaged back, and he's like, Ranger stop in Orlando. And I was like, this weekend you're gonna be there the whole weekend and everything? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, yeah. It's like, okay, I may just have to swing over because I'm in Tampa now, or St. Petersburg, but close enough. And so that Saturday, since I was off, and my husband was working for part of the day, and then he was going to get a big tattoo. And so I was like, I don't want to just twiddle my thumbs and sit for 3 hours playing on my phone while you're getting a tattoo kind of thing. Like I was like, let me just go over there. So they had Ernie, Judith Hogue, Brian Tucci, Robbie Wrist, Ken Scott, and Todd Langan, who so Todd's the writer of the first two. He wrote the first two movies, and then like Robbie and Brian were voices. Brian's voice of Leonardo, Robbie's Michelangelo, Judith is April, the 1st April, and then Ken was in the Raphael suit for a couple of months. And so I was like, there's Ranger people, which I loved Power Rangers and everything, but I was like, there's Turtle, there's
Right.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I was like, I have to go for that. So I'll show you real quick. I just happen to have this. My husband had gotten me a really this
It was there
okay,
for
you know
a
what?
split second.
Screw, give me 1 second here. This
Those dang virtual
background
backgrounds.
is
Well, there's been
killing me.
times you've lifted your arm and it completely switches your forearm tattoo to the background. Like it's
Yeah.
it's so sensitive.
So
Oh, that's super
That's cute.
cool.
and
That
so
animation's super neat.
and this is like legit, the material is legitimately from the early 90s. And so I wore that, and I was just Turtle. And Todd was coming in to go to his spot, and he saw my shirt and he's like, come see me, like I'm doing free autographs, free pictures. I wrote the Turtles. I was like, all right, you're gonna be my first stop because I got a nice story for you. And he had his original turtle jacket, jean jacket from the production of the first one. And I believe I know I've got pictures on my personal. I think I have put some up on our 90s Noise Instagram also from this little trip. But then obviously, like, I was in line for Todd when Ernie came in, and Ernie's like, you made it. I was like, yeah, I told you I was probably gonna make it. But because we had talked before when we saw him in Pensacon back in February of last year. Had talked to him a bit and everything. And so I like went down the line. I talked to Ernie for a little bit, then went to Judith and told, because it was funny. Everybody that didn't, besides Ernie, that I told my name to, they're like, oh, hi, April, nice to meet you. Any connection? And it's like the kind of the realization on their faces when I said my name was April, and they're kind of like, is there connection to this? And so then I would tell them how I got my name, and Judith Hogue on my Turtles like 4-pack. It's got the first 3 live actions and then that 2007 one. She wrote on the back for my namesake.
Oh, that's
and
so sweet.
So it was great. I absolutely loved it. All of them were super nice, super nice. And yeah, it was funny though, because like I saw I really liked that convention because it was at a hotel. It wasn't like an actual a true convention center. It was the hotel's convention center, and everybody was just walking around. Like Walter Jones, Power Rangers, passed by him like 6 times.
Wow, that's
and
cool.
everything. And each time it was just like, hey, and it's like, hi, how's it going?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So I like the big conventions because they bring in some of those big names. Like MegaCon, we got to meet Skeet Ulrich and Henry Winkler. But
Oh, I think yeah. I think you posted a photo I think of you and Henry Winkler.
mhm,
He just looks so like because it looked like you guys were best friends. Like it seems like no matter who he meets, he has this like beaming smile, like
mhm,
he's so happy to be with whoever he's with at that
Hmm.
moment. Yeah,
yeah,
that's super cool. Wow.
yes.
So
So
Ashley, is there like a core nostalgia like Arnold for me, like the fact that April has the April O'Neil thing. Like, do you have like a core nostalgia thing for you, whether it's a movie, actor, whatever it might be?
Um, Not really, honestly. I
There's
think
nobody that you'd lose your mind if you met
well, I mean,
from your childhood?
I mean, Mary Kate and Ashley are like my
Oh,
childhood. I think
mm.
that's really the only, which I'll never meet them, so I
Yeah,
don't
they don't
hold.
do anything,
I,
do they?
oh
no.
Yeah. They could make so much. You imagine if they did
my
the
God,
convention scene, they'd make
it would be
so much money.
insane.
Oh man,
Yeah.
could you imagine if they came to like 90s, the 90s con, and like even if they just did like one day,
Yeah.
it would be they it would be kind of like with Shannon at the Connecticut one, where is she like I don't think she had a break because she was doing
Mm.
Charmed and 90210.
Yeah.
And so she just was constantly, I think that would be the same with them, but that would be oh
Well, especially if they did like a full house of everybody
mm,
like that. I mean, that would just be. I think that I'm the same way with John Stamos. If I could meet Uncle Jesse, I'd lose my mind.
we did we
Like,
did.
oh my God. Wow. I feel like you got all the name drops today.
We made the mistake of not also meeting Bob Saget that day.
Yeah.
Because that was 2001.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
he used to
MegaCon in
come to Cleveland
2001.
a ton to there's a small comedy venue in Cleveland,
Mhm.
like 45 minutes north of me, where you can literally buy front row seats at the table right. I mean, it's maybe fits 300 people. You can buy
Yeah.
front row seats and watch an A-list comedian for maybe $60 for a couple. And he used to come there all the time, and I
Oh,
wish I would have went. Like I same with Jason David Frank as the Green Ranger. He came here so many times, and I was just like, "Oh, I'll go eventually." And I'm so depressed that I never
There
did.
was three conventions that I went to that look my first MegaCon he was at, the one that I met Kimberly,
Hmm.
Amy Jo Johnson. And then he was also over at Tampa. Well, we went to the Tampa convention that year. And he was at the next year's MegaCon also.
Yeah.
But 2019's MegaCon was they had Goonies reunion, they
Whoa.
had Lost Boys reunion, they had the Back to the Future, they had the Four Mains from Boy Meets World, they had
Geez, that had to pull like 100,000 people easily. Like,
oh my gosh. It was completely it was sold out and they actually sold out and not like this new company where this last beginning of the month was oh Saturday sold out but you can buy tickets to enter after 2 p.m.
hmm.
It this new company that has it is just they're money hungry
Yeah.
and it was bad but that year in 2019 it was crazy amount of reunions that they were doing like my picture with Kiefer Sutherland is also has Lou Diamond Phillips in it
Oh, cool.
because I did the Young Guns one
Oh,
so
nice.
but
That's pretty sweet. I feel like I do a lot of toy conventions, and
mm,
collectible conventions. I need to do more celebrity ones because even the toy conventions, you get the occasional, more like B rated celebrity and C rated celebrities that come to it. Um, but yeah, some of those bigger ones with people that are starting to hit the conventions for like the first time in recent years because they see the money that they can.
mhm.
Like Michael J. Fox was $600 for him to sign something like at the Philadelphia Fan Expo.
oh my
Like it
gosh.
was insane. But I mean, he's Michael J. Fox. Like, and I guarantee you, in a weekend, I mean, he's probably making several $1 million because there's
Oh yeah.
probably like 50, 60,000 people that come and pay $500 a pop. Like
I
it's
know
just nuts.
I know with though when he was at MegaCon, it was you had to pre-purchase for him.
Yeah.
And he only was doing so many because he could. And it had to be like a flat
Yes.
item.
Yeah, because
Um,
when I was really hardcore looking into the Fan Expo Philly, yeah, they had a pricing for a flat, like a poster, an 8x10, and then the pricing was like $150 more for a small collectible, and then $150 more for a large
Wow.
collectible, and it was based on measurements and things like that.
Hmm.
And I was just like, oh man, I would have spent like $1,200 just to meet him, have him sign what I wanted him to sign. And that's not the admission to the expo. That's not the
mhm.
flight to Philly. That's not the hotel. Like I was just like, maybe I'll just, yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
not doing it.
Yeah, I hear
Amy Jo
you.
Johnson for like $75 at,
Yeah.
Cedar Rapids. I'll do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Eric, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you because it gave me somebody to talk to the three ninjas about.
Maybe we can do more episodes where like I'm obsessed with Ghostbusters and David hates Bill Murray. And it drives me insane how much he hates Bill Murray. And so it's like I can never do an episode of Groundhog Day. I can't do
Mm.
Ghostbusters. I can't do What About Bob? I can't do Strike. I can't do any of these things. So I feel like, yeah, if there's any episodes where like Ashley just is like, I have no nostalgic connection to this, we can just do crossovers where we at least have something. And maybe then like Ashley and David could get on an episode where you just like, I have no idea why these idiots like this movie.
That would be awesome.
That would for
Edit them
sure.
together of just like nostalgic love for something, and then the very next minute is people just being like, "This is stupid. I hate it." That'd be fun.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, no
This
problem.
has been,
I appreciate the invite, and
yeah.
yeah, I think I feel like there's a good amount of people that do nostalgia podcasts right now. I think there's a lot of millennials that want to stay connected to their childhood. And
Mhm.
honestly, the merrier. It's just, I
Absolutely.
feel like when you hear somebody tell a story, like especially you about your connection with April, it's like to hear passion in anybody's life I mean, we all just went through a very difficult period together, and to form podcasts and form connections regardless of living hours away. It's like,
Mhm.
it's pretty sweet that we live in a time where we can, we're not on a landline phone, in our bedrooms. Like to be able to share our nostalgia now with the world through Zoom and things like that is pretty cool. So yeah, keep up the good work.
Thank you. And you guys too. And we will definitely be touching base to see about any upcoming ones in the future for sure.
Sounds good.
But again, thank you so much. And yeah, so be sure to check out Bygone Geek. Uh, I've got Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and
Hmm.
everywhere where you can find podcasts.
Yep. And I feel like every episode that I end on the podcast is telling everybody, thanks everybody for listening. Until the next time you see us or hear us, be sure to live your life with just a little bit of whimsy. We'll see you guys next week.